what is one piece of gear on your bike that you expect to work no matter what, yet often neglect? So for me, it's the pedal, a small but very necessary part of the bike that you just assume will do the job, right? So today, Wolftooth actually launched their new range of SPD-compatible pedals, the Control Alt Delete. And in this video, I'm going to share them with you all. All right, let's do it. All right, so aptly named Control Alt Delete. Most of you probably know this shortcut, this Windows shortcut, as the Windows security command that opens the security screen to manage your computer. So as a PC user growing up, but a longtime Mac user for over a decade now, hearing those commands actually kind of instantly takes me back to my childhood. So I remember using the classic command whenever, say, a program or a game like, say, StarCraft would freeze or crash. I was so frustrated when that happened. And the last resort was hitting those keys. So these commands are, well, they're iconic and as reliable as those memories, which kind of makes the naming rather clever and fitting for some pedals, in my opinion. So the new Wolftooth pedals use Shimano's SPD technology. So SPD is short for Shimano Pedaling Dynamics. And it was first actually introduced in 1990. So Shimano had actually filed patents a year earlier in 1989 covering the spring-loaded retention system and the recessed 2-bolt cleat interface that made SPD such a breakthrough for mountain biking. So fast forward, those patents now have since expired, which is why we now see so many SPD compatible pedals from other brands. So I'd say Shimano set kind of the standard for clipless pedals, and that design, the SPD design, still defines much of what we use today. So as far as me, I've been using or I've been an SPD user for as long as I can remember. I had a short stint with Time pedals back in 2014, but nothing really has matched the consistency of SPDs. Bottom line, I like the clipless system for that consistent feel every time I get on the bike. I use flat pedals from time to time, but I just prefer clipless. And shoes have really come a long way in this regard. Many now strike a nice balance, offering the support and feel that you want on the bike while still kind of being practical for, I'd say, bike packing trips or simply just walking around town. So it makes a lot of sense that companies like, say, OneUp or Wolftooth have used this system. It's reliable, it works, and it's already very widespread. Many riders have, well, SPD cleats on their shoes, which brings me to a quick note here. Shimano actually just recently updated their cleats or added a cleat with the addition of the MT-001. So it's designed with bike packers in mind here. It's thinner, more tapered, and offers better walkability than the original SH51 cleats. So you had that toe in and step down to kind of get in, and then that twist out release. So the new CLMT-001 cleats give you more options. You can actually still use that toe in method, but you can also step straight down or even roll the heel in first before settling your toe in. So for me, someone who gets on and off the bike a lot during, say, my bike packing trips, especially when I'm either filming or shooting photo, that flexibility has been super helpful with this new cleat. And while I haven't tried the Wolftooth cleats a lot, I only recently installed them. They actually are essentially the same shape as that Shimano's new cleat, and I honestly can't really tell the difference. The key point here is that both the MT-001 and the SH51 or 56 were great with these Wolftooth pedals. So if you already have those on your shoe, you likely won't, well, skip a beat with these Wolftooth pedals, but of course, more on that soon. All right, so before we get into the specs of these pedals, I do want to take a quick moment to let you all know that this video is supported in part by Coros, the brand behind the Coros Dura Solar GPS bike computer. So the Dura is a head unit that you might have seen in some of our videos, and well, for good reason. It offers an impressive 120 hours of battery life on a single charge. In fact, I only had to charge mine once over a 6-month period. And if that wasn't enough, well, it features highly efficient solar panels on top, which make a noticeable difference in sunny conditions. With simple controls and intuitive navigation, it's perfect for bike packing or day rides of any length. So to learn a little bit more about the Coros Dura, an award-winning head unit, you can click on the card in the top right corner here, or else follow the link in the description below. All right, so Wolf Tooth launched 3 new pedals today, despite me only actually testing the control and the alt. So I will kind of mainly focus on these 2 pedals here, but I should mention the delete, though it's a pretty unique design. Wolf Tooth actually says it was inspired by input from professional gravel racers, so not exactly in our lane here, but if you're into kind of a lightweight, one-sided, low stack pedal, well, it could be worth a look. All right, so the alt here is their XC style pedal. It's double-sided, and it comes in at a weight of 295 grams per pair with a 15 millimeter thick body and, well, surprisingly large kind of platform area for an XC pedal. So the control here is their trail pedal, and it's a bit more unique than most trail pedals, I guess. It comes in at 326 grams per pair and also has a 15 millimeter body and offers an even larger platform for shoe to pedal contact. So I'd say most trail pedals include a cage and or pins included on that cage, which actually provide a larger platform for, say, unclipped pedaling and kind of help protect the SPD binding from impacts and pedal strikes. But Wolf Tooth kind of went with a simpler design here. But maybe the most distinctive feature across all of these new Wolf Tooth pedals is the new internal self-adjusting Q factor system. So it basically lets you set axle length to 51, 55, or 59 millimeters measured from the end of the spindle to the middle of the pedal body here. So all of the pedals are built around a stainless steel axle, stainless steel binding, and an aluminum body. The hardware on the pedals include some T25 bolts for the bindings, a 3 millimeter hex to adjust, tighten or release the tension, a 6 millimeter to detach the spindle from the body itself. You've got another 3 millimeter bolt within that to loosen the spindle from the body itself. And then you've got an 8 millimeter to remove the pedal from the crank arm. So Wolf Tooth machines the pedal bodies and axles in-house, just like their flat pedals they offer. However, the other parts, such as the springs, the bolts, the bearings, and the stamped stainless kind of cage or binding, whatever you want to call it, do require different equipment than they have at their Minnesota facility. So these parts are sourced overseas. So like I said, what really sets these pedals apart from anything I've really ever used is how easy it is to adjust the axle length, which in turn helps change the Q factor of your bike. So I've actually replaced axle spindles before for this, but I've never actually had or been able to adjust the length so easily on a pedal. This is great not only for dialing in fit based on, say, different styles of shoes or bikes, but it also eliminates the need to buy different spindles or aftermarket parts. So all of the new Wolf Tooth pedals ship at 55 millimeters, but you can easily switch them to 51 millimeters or 59 millimeters with a few tools in, I'd say, about 5 minutes. So to make what they are calling a Q factor adjustment, all you have to do is start removing the end cap with a 6 millimeter, and then you use an 8 millimeter on the end of the axles paired with a 3 millimeter on the small bolt head inside the pedal body to remove the body from the axle. So on the right pedal, you'll have a left-handed thread, so you'll actually turn that clockwise to loosen it. And then on the left pedal, it's a right-handed thread, so you'll turn that counterclockwise to loosen the bolt out. So once the bolt is out, the axle slides kind of right out of the body, and then the bearings and spacers will actually usually kind of stay inside the body, but you can easily push them out with that 6 millimeter. So this also is where you can maintain the pedal by either swapping out the bearings if they need that, or if you need to add some more grease, you can do that then. So from here, adjusting the Q factor just means, well, restacking the spacers and bearings in kind of different orientations. So for the 51 millimeter Q factor, you place the 2 spacers first, or I guess inboard, before the bearings. For a 55 millimeter Q factor, the spacers go on the outside of the bearings, one on each side. And then for the wide 59 millimeter setup, both spacers sit outboard with the bearings kind of right up against the spindle. So I've experimented with all three settings and I recommend you trying it yourself. It is extremely quick and easy. And if your shoe is rubbing your crank arm, well, adjusting the axle length is an easy fix here. That all said, the 55 millimeter orientation seemed to be the perfect fit for me, especially with the way my cleats are oriented. So I will be releasing a full video comparison of various trail pedals in the coming months as I'm still testing a few of them, so stay tuned for that. However, I do want to highlight some key differences between the new Wolftooth pedals and, well, their competitors. So first, Wolftooth really prioritized the contact area between the pedal body and the shoe. So I never actually realized how big of a deal this actually was until I tested two different pedals side by side, comparing the Wolftooth Alt to the Shimano XTR M9200. There was a definitive and noticeable difference in feel. So while I still actually think shoe shank stiffness has a bigger impact overall, especially with a very soft shank versus a very stiff one, I will say a larger contact area on the platform does help with power transfer, but maybe more so overall feel and stability in the pedal. So another main difference is the 15 millimeter body thickness. So the Alt and Control have both 15 millimeter, and in the big picture, it doesn't sound like much, but when you are pedaling through kind of rocky terrain, even a 1.5 millimeter difference compared to the Shimano M9200 could be the difference between a clean pedal stroke and a pedal strike. So on the other hand, the actual platform area on the M9200 is actually significantly smaller than that of the Alt, making for, I'd say, maybe more overall clearance through the body outside of the center area. So I guess there is an argument to be made that in the right circumstances, the M9200 could reduce pedal strikes better than the Alt. And as for feel, well, clipping in and out of Wolftooth pedals is excellent. In a blind test, switching between Wolftooth and Shimano SPDs, I'd probably have a very hard time telling them apart, which is high praise because, well, I've always really loved that feel of clipping in and out with Shimano pedals. And adjusting tension is extremely easy to perform with a 3 millimeter on the Wolftooth pedal. However, it doesn't feel nearly as, I don't know, confident or definitive as a Shimano pedal does when kind of tightening or loosening the tension. So the adjustable axle length is obviously what really sets Wolftooth apart from others. It's not something you will change all that often, but having that flexibility certainly adds real value to these pedals. And then there's the weight. So Wolftooth really clearly set out to make a lighter pedal overall. So the Alt comes in at 295 grams compared to the Shimano PD M9200, which is just their new XTR pedal, 319 grams for that one. So the Control pedal comes in at 326 grams, while the Shimano's new XTR trail pedal, the M9220, tips the scale at 439 grams without pins. So I guess the main difference here is that, well, the cage and pins found on Shimano's trail pedals, and I guess many other trail pedals, it certainly adds weight, but also provides that larger surface area for unclipped pedaling and protection from the mechanism from strikes. So I'd say Wolftooth's simple approach here is, well, how they shaved off so much weight while still maintaining a larger pedal body for stability. That all said, obviously it does result in less surface area if you are or become unclipped on a descent and need to find a temporary footing. All right, so I haven't had a ton of time on each of these pedals individually, probably a few hundred miles on them combined, but I'm thoroughly impressed so far. I've actually tested plenty of Shimano pedals over the years and only recently started branching out into more SPD compatible options to see, well, which ones are worth it. But the fact that I have no real complaints about how the Wolftooth pedals perform is a great sign. Pedals should just work. In between the entry and exit feel and the tension adjustment, well, these absolutely do just that. So if anything here, I'd actually say the Wolftooth pedals actually give me a better feel for my bike. That's part of the reason I've actually really been leaning towards trail pedals more often. A bigger platform gives my foot more leverage to kind of react to trail obstacles, kind of helping me shift my weight and move the bike from side to side more effectively. So I guess the difference between the traditional XC pedal and, say, a Wolftooth Alt is subtle, but swapping to the control here, even on, say, my gravel bike, gave me a surprising amount of extra control that I actually didn't realize I was missing. So without the aggressive cage found on this pedal, like other trail pedals have, it doesn't actually look out of place either on a gravel bike. I kind of think of it as cheating in a way, as it truly does offer that much more confidence when descending. So as for conditions, I've tested them a lot in semi-wet and a lot of dry conditions. They've actually been really flawless in those conditions. In mud, I really haven't had them in true kind of peanut butter mud or really nasty conditions yet. But in semi-muddy situations, they still release and clip in without issue. It is worth noting here that Wolftooth does offer a slightly narrower axle throughout the whole body here, which in turn gave them the ability to CNC the body in the middle here slightly thinner than, I'd say, a Shimano or other pedals. So you actually have a little bit more room for mud to kind of filter in and out or through. I will have to report back though on how they work in those really yucky muddy conditions, and I will do so in the comments section below. All right, so one thing I should mention that I've noticed after plenty of miles on these pedals, plenty of break-in miles, is that the axle still kind of spins with a bit of resistance. You don't feel it while riding, but off the bike, when they're off the bike, the control and alt both have a bit of resistance or drag. I'm not sure if that's just part of the system or if it will ease up over time, but it certainly feels worth mentioning. And I did double check the torque on the inner bolt. It's to spec, so I'm not 100% sure, and maybe this is just how the pedal feels. But for me, I kind of feel like I'd like less resistance overall when the pedal rotates, and most of my Shimano pedals do a good job of breaking in after 20 or so miles. All right, so overall, I've really enjoyed my time with the control and the alt. Between the axle adjustment, the emphasis on surface area for better control, and the lower weight compared to many in their class, it's really hard not to like what Wolftooth is doing here. And I especially appreciate the control pedal, which actually gives me, well, yeah, you guessed it, more control across all of my bikes, not just my trail bikes. So on top of that, obviously, I just really like the overall look, the subtle branding, and obviously the two color options. The new Control Alt Delete pedals are available now at your local bike shop or at wolftooth.com for $219.99. So that puts them a bit more expensive than Shimano's XTR M9200, but still cheaper than the XTR M9220. I actually really like the idea of keeping all of the Wolftooth pedal models at the same price point. It just makes a lot of sense. That all said, I would love to see a lower price option down the road with maybe fewer features. Maybe get rid of that axle adjustment feature, especially since you can actually pick up a solid pedal in the Shimano XT for $80 less. So for now, Wolftooth pedals come in black and ultraviolet purple, with more colors promised soon, which is always a plus. And like all Wolftooth products, they carry the brand's right to repair promise. So every part is replaceable. So if you break something, the pedals won't end up in the landfill. You can just replace that part. So that commitment to repairability, along with their clever design touches, is what really makes these pedals stand out in today's market. So what do you all think about Control Alt Delete? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you all so much for watching. And if you like what you saw in this video and want to see more like it, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And if you want to help support this YouTube channel as a whole, BIKEPACKING.com, you can do so by joining the Bikepacking Collective. The Bikepacking Collective offers a lot of awesome perks, including industry discounts, monthly giveaways, the all-new base camp, and of course the twice-yearly bikepacking journal. So to learn a little bit more about the Bikepacking Collective, you can click on the card in the top right corner, or also follow the link in the description below. As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, pedal further.